If you have ever done everything you were told would bring happiness, worked harder, learned more, tried to be better, yet still felt a quiet tightness inside, you are not alone. Many sincere seekers reach a point where outer success and inner peace no longer align. Something begins to whisper that there must be another way of living, a way that feels more natural, more honest, and less exhausting. Across thousands of years, different wisdom traditions have tried to point toward this deeper way. In Taoism, it is called the Tao, the underlying flow of life itself, the intelligence that moves seasons, breath, growth, and decay without struggle. In modern spiritual psychology, teachers like Eckhart Tolle and Michael A. Singer describe a similar truth. Beneath our thoughts, fears, and stories about who we are, there is a quiet awareness that does not need to fight reality in order to exist. Yet most of us do not live from that place. We live from something else, the ego. The ego is not evil. It is simply the voice in the mind that tries to protect an identity, who we think we are, how we believe we should be seen, and what we think we must achieve to be worthy of love, safety, or meaning. It plans, compares, defends, and worries, often without rest. And while it can help us survive, it can also quietly drain the joy from our lives. So the question we are exploring today is not philosophical. It is deeply practical. Are you living in alignment with the Tao, the natural flow of life? Or are you being driven by the ego's endless need to control, prove, and protect? This video is not meant to judge you or correct you. It is meant to walk with you gently, like a friend pointing out a different path through the forest. As we move through these reflections, you may begin to notice something subtle but powerful. The moment you stop forcing, life often begins to open. What is the Tao really? Before we can understand the difference between the Tao and the ego, we must first gently clarify what the Tao actually is. This word has been used for thousands of years, yet it points to something far more intimate than any definition. In the Tao Te Ching, attributed to Laozi, we are reminded that the Tao is not something the intellect can fully grasp. The moment we try to capture it with words, it slips through our fingers. That is not a failure of language, it is a clue about the nature of reality itself. The Tao is the way life moves when it is not being resisted. It is the invisible order behind growth, decay, rhythm, and change. Rivers flow, trees grow, clouds form, and your heart beats without consulting your opinions. That effortless unfolding is the Tao in motion. It is not chaotic, yet it is not rigid. It is alive, responsive, and quietly intelligent. In the writings of Zhuangzi, another great Taoist sage, the Tao is revealed through stories that dissolve our obsession with control. He shows us that much of human suffering does not come from life itself, but from the way we cling to fixed ideas of who we are and how things should be. When we relax those ideas, something natural and spacious emerges. To follow the Tao does not mean abandoning responsibility or becoming passive. It means learning to move with life instead of against it. It is the difference between swimming upstream in panic and floating with the current in awareness. You still steer. You still act. But you are no longer at war with the water. When you are aligned with the Tao, your actions feel sincere rather than strained. There is effort, but not desperation. There is intention, but not inner violence. You begin to sense that you do not need to force yourself into being someone in order to be whole. The Tao does not ask you to become more. It invites you to become more natural. And in that naturalness, something deeply peaceful begins to return. What is the ego, and why is it so persuasive? Now that we have a sense of what the Tao is, we can gently turn toward what most often pulls us away from it, the ego. The ego is not something bad that must be destroyed. It is simply a pattern of thought that forms an identity. It is the story the mind tells about who you are, what you must become, and what you need in order to feel safe, valued, and complete. From a young age, the ego begins building this story. It notices praise and criticism, success and failure, belonging and rejection, and it quietly draws conclusions. This is who I am. This is what makes me worthy. This is what I must avoid. Over time, this story becomes so familiar that we mistake it for our true self. Modern spiritual teachers describe this clearly. Eckhart Tolle explains that the ego is the part of the mind that is constantly identifying with thought, especially thought about me and my life. Michael A. Singer describes it as the inner voice that never stops narrating, analyzing, and worrying. This voice is not evil, but when it dominates your awareness, it pulls you out of the present moment and into an endless loop of fear and desire. From a Taoist perspective, the ego shows itself as resistance. It argues with what is. It tries to bend life to fit its expectations. When reality does not cooperate, it tightens, struggles, and suffers. The ego is persuasive because it promises safety. It says, if you achieve this, if you control that, if you protect this image, then you will finally be okay. But that, finally, rarely arrives. The mind always finds a new problem to solve, a new identity to defend. So the ego is not your enemy. It is simply a frightened manager trying to run your life. But when it sits in the driver's seat, the natural flow of the Tao becomes harder to hear. And slowly, quietly, attention begins to grow where peace could have been. The core difference: flow versus force. One of the simplest ways to tell whether you are following the Tao or the ego is to feel the quality of your inner movement. Not the outer activity of your life, but the inner atmosphere from which that activity arises. Are you moving with a quiet sense of alignment, or with a subtle pressure that says something must be achieved in order for you to be okay? The Tao moves through flow. Flow does not mean that everything is easy, but it does mean that there is a sense of cooperation with life. You may still work hard, make difficult choices, and face uncertainty, but there is a feeling that you are moving with the current rather than fighting it. There is effort without inner resistance. The ego moves through force. Even when things appear successful on the surface, there is a tightening inside. The mind is constantly calculating, comparing, and protecting an image of who you think you are. The question is not simply, am I doing something? But, from where is this action coming? In Taoism, this difference is expressed through the principle of Wu Wei, often translated as non-forcing or effortless action. This does not mean passivity. It means allowing action to arise from clarity rather than from anxiety. Just as a skilled musician plays without strain, a Tao-aligned life moves without unnecessary tension. When the ego is in control, life becomes a project. Every outcome is loaded with meaning about your worth. Success must prove you are enough. Failure must be avoided at all costs. But when you are aligned with the Tao, action becomes an expression of truth rather than a negotiation with fear. You still set goals. You still take responsibility. But you no longer demand that life validate your identity. And in that shift, something remarkable happens. The struggle softens. The heart steadies. And the path becomes clearer, not because you control it, but because you are finally walking with it. The ego's spiritual disguises. As we walk deeper on any spiritual or self-development path, something subtle often happens. The ego, which once sought validation through success, appearance, or social approval, begins to shift its strategy. It may let go of some old identities, but quietly replace them with new, more refined ones. This is why spiritual growth can sometimes become another form of self-image rather than a release from it. The ego does not mind becoming spiritual. It simply wants to remain in control. It may begin to say things like, I am more aware than others, or I have gone beyond ordinary people, or I must always be calm, loving, and enlightened. These thoughts sound elevated, but underneath them is the same old fear, the fear of not being enough, of being ordinary, of being seen as flawed. In Taoism, this kind of striving is seen as another form of imbalance. Zhuangzi often used humor and paradox to show how ridiculous it is to cling to any fixed idea of what it means to be wise, pure, or awakened. True alignment with the Tao is not about becoming something special. It is about becoming natural. Modern teachers echo this insight. Real awareness does not create superiority. It creates humility. It does not make you rigidly peaceful. It makes you honest about what is present. Anger, grief, joy, and doubt are not signs of failure. They are movements of life. When the ego is disguised as spirituality, there is often tension behind the serenity. You feel pressure to perform calmness, to appear evolved, or to suppress parts of yourself that do not fit the spiritual image. When you are aligned with the Tao, there is no such performance. You allow yourself to be human. You listen rather than pretend. You soften instead of trying to shine. True spirituality does not build a higher pedestal. It gently removes the need for one. How to tell who you're following. At this point, the ideas of the Tao and the ego may feel clear, but the real question is how they show up in daily life. The Tao is not something you follow only during meditation or quiet moments. It is something you either align with or resist in every conversation, every decision, and every emotional reaction. One of the most reliable indicators is what is happening inside your body. When you are aligned with the Tao, there is usually a sense of openness. The breath moves freely. The shoulders soften. Even when something is difficult, there is a feeling of grounded presence. When the ego is running the show, the body often tightens. The jaw clenches. The chest contracts. There is an urgency that says something is wrong and must be fixed immediately. Another way to notice the difference is to look at your relationship with uncertainty. The Tao is comfortable with not knowing. It trusts that life can unfold without being micromanaged. The ego, however, feels threatened by the unknown. It constantly demands answers, guarantees, and control, because it believes that uncertainty equals danger. You can also listen to your motivation. Before taking an action, gently ask yourself, am I doing this to express something true, or to protect an image of who I think I should be? Actions aligned with the Tao feel sincere, even when no one is watching. Ego-driven actions often depend on approval, recognition, or avoidance of shame. After an action, notice the emotional aftertaste. When something arises from alignment, there is a quiet sense of completeness. When it arises from ego, there is often restlessness, even if things go well. None of this is meant to judge you. These are simply mirrors. Each moment gives you another chance to see whether you are moving from fear or from truth. And every time you notice the difference, you are already beginning to return to the Tao. Returning to the Tao. Understanding the difference between the Tao and the ego is only the beginning. What truly transforms a life is learning how to return to the Tao, again and again, in ordinary moments. This return is not dramatic. It does not require a special posture, a perfect mindset, or a retreat in the mountains. It happens quietly, right in the middle of your daily experience. The first step is always softening. When the ego is active, the body and mind tighten. You may not notice it at first, but there is often a subtle holding in the breath, the jaw, or the stomach. By simply pausing and allowing the body to relax, you are already stepping out of resistance and back into alignment. This is why so many spiritual traditions begin with the breath. It is the doorway through which you re-enter the present moment. Next, bring gentle awareness to what the mind is insisting on. The ego usually carries a demand. Something must happen, someone must change, or you must become something else in order to feel okay. You do not need to argue with this demand. Simply notice it. Awareness weakens the grip of compulsion. Then ask yourself a quiet, powerful question. What is the simplest honest action I can take right now without forcing myself? This question shifts you out of struggle and into sincerity. Instead of trying to control the entire future, you align with the truth of this moment. That is the Tao in practice. Returning to the Tao also means letting go of what is unnecessary, extra worry, extra self-judgment, extra stories about who you should be. Taoist wisdom teaches that clarity often comes not from adding more, but from removing what is in the way. Each time you choose presence over panic, truth over performance, and softness over struggle, you are following the Tao. And little by little, life begins to feel less like a battle, and more like a path unfolding beneath your feet. As we come to the end of this reflection, it may be helpful to pause for a moment and simply notice what is happening inside you. Not to analyze it, not to judge it, just to feel. The Tao is always present, but it is easiest to sense when we stop rushing to the next thought. The ego often wants a final answer, a clear conclusion, something it can hold onto and turn into a new identity. Now I understand. Now I am different. But the Tao does not work that way. It is not a concept to master. It is a way of being that you return to, moment by moment. So rather than asking yourself, "Did I get this right?" you might gently ask, "Where am I forcing, and where could I soften?" That single question can quietly transform the way you move through your day. In a conversation, you may notice the urge to defend. In a decision, you may feel the pressure to prove. In a quiet moment, you may sense the habit of worrying. Each of these is simply an invitation to return, to breathe, to feel, and to listen. Following the Tao does not mean that life becomes perfect. It means that you stop being at war with what is. And when the inner conflict fades, even difficult moments carry a strange kind of peace. If this reflection has spoken to you, you may wish to take a few minutes after this video to sit quietly, or walk slowly, or simply breathe without trying to change anything. Let the nervous system rest. Let the mind loosen. That too is part of the Tao. Thank you for sharing this space. May your path be gentle, and may you remember that you do not have to struggle your way into being whole.